Welcome back, folks. This is a video for our tips, tools, and techniques playlist. This is where we put together some things that may help you in your customizing journey, whether it's different tools that you could pick up or how to use them. And today we're going to talk about a couple different things. One is these Tamiya triangular swabs, so we'll look at those. And then the other one are these sculpting tools here, specifically the end that is called a ball stylus. So those are the two that we're going to look at. So let's see how we use these. Here we go.
Curtis A reached out to me, said make a theme song for my show. Said alright, just give me all the details, man. And my homie says he don't know. Well, if you're gonna pay me big bucks, cause I might should have something to say. He said, you know what I bring, I'm the customizing king, nothing else matters anyway. So is he gonna have guests? I don't know. Is he gonna go live? I don't know. What time will it be? What will you see? I'm pretty much in the dark, but I can guarantee you'll be customizing action figures, getting paint all on his fingers. It's art by Akerman. It's art by Akerman. Tips and tricks and conversation, sharing his gift with every nation. It's art by Akerman. Art by Akerman. You best get ready, cause now it's time for Art by Akerman.
Okay, so we're going to talk about these tools that we're going to be using today. The first one are these sculpting tools. And we're specifically looking at the end here that's called a ball stylus. They also have this like silicone end on it for sculpting. So if you're doing any kind of sculpting with like green stuff or epoxy sculpt, you can definitely use these for that. But what we're going to be using them today is actually for painting. So I'm going to show you how and why we would use these for painting. I'll include a link into the set that I've purchased. I don't know that it's necessarily the best set. It's just what I've picked up and what I'm using. And then I'm going to show you these cotton swabs, or we'll just say swabs. I believe they're cotton, but from Tamiya. And we've got two different ones that we're going to look at, and I will include the material numbers for those so that you can make sure you get the right one. This one here is a Tamiya 87105, and this one is Tamiya 87106. This one is labeled as, I believe, extra small, and I think this one is labeled as small. So let's start with the ball stylus and what we're using it for. So occasionally you'll be working on armor like this pauldron here, and you've got to do some of these rivets, right? And you could get a paintbrush, and we'll just take like this 3/0, and you could get some paint on here on the paintbrush. And what happens, if I'll kind of zoom in there, if you look at the paintbrush, typically your paint is it's not going to ball up at the end of the brush. It's going to hit more in the middle where the bristles are, right? And so when you're painting lines, the reason why I use my thumb, people have asked that a lot, is really to just kind of get this to a fine point, and so that when I'm painting lines, I can get these really crisp, detailed lines in there, right? So, but if I'm painting a rivet like these, you kind of want the paint at the end of the brush, right? But it's not going to be at the end of the brush, because you have these brushes that have really sharp points on them. So if I was to paint a rivet, like we'll just take this one that doesn't have them, and let's say I'm painting like this bigger rivet here. I'm going to have to come in with this paintbrush and actually paint the entire area and try to make sure that I get it to look very circular, right? I don't want it to have some spots that are out of place and stuff. Now, it's not super difficult to do it with a paintbrush, but what I'm going to show you with this ball stylus is really easy. So on these, this is the set that I purchased. It's actually got some extra ones in here that I don't have out that are larger than these. But I've put some numbers on here because they don't have numbers on them. And you can see as you put them next to each other, and the reason I've got them numbered is because they go up in size as you get further along, right? So if I just was to hold them up to each other, I could see which ones are bigger and which ones are smaller. But I numbered them just so that it, quick at a glance, I can grab the right one that I need, right? So what I'm gonna do is, we'll take a look at, we've got some different size like rivets and stuff here, right? But let's take like this smaller one, right? So if I wanted to get those small ones there, I'm probably gonna start with this number 2 that I've labeled here, which is just one up from the bottom. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get a little bit of this gold on there. And you can see, because it's this rounded ball stylus, it's right at the end. So now I can just dab it, dab it, dab it, and dab it. Now, you can see on this last one, because I'm trying to do this underneath the camera, I actually got some above there. Now I'm gonna paint that anyway, but I'm glad that I actually made a mistake there. It's almost like I planned it, because that's where these Tamiya swabs come in, right? So you've got this one, which is the 106. And if I had a larger area that I was trying to do, like maybe I was painting this black in here and I got a whole stripe of the black into the brown, I could get a little bit of water on here and quickly go over this and get that off. Because this area is so tiny, I'm gonna use the, this is the 105, I'm sorry, the other one was the 106. I'm gonna use the 105, which is the smaller one, get a little bit of water on the end for my water cup, and then I'm just gonna go over this area where I went a little bit too far with the gold, right? And I'm just gonna quickly get it off. And that saves me from having to repaint that area. This especially becomes important when you're working on things like flesh tones, or if you've mixed colors that are, maybe a little bit difficult. And so you don't want to have to like go through the process of remixing them. This will help you to where you're not having to go back over that area. So it's like a saver, right? Like an oops fixer, I guess you would call it. So that's what these Tamiyas do. And unlike normal cotton swabs, they don't have like the fibers that come loose. Like if you look at like a regular like Q-tip or something, and you get it wet and you start using it, you'll see like these fibers coming off. And you don't want that with these, because that'll get stuck in the paint and kind of get into your paint job. But these are really compact to where they will hold water, they will do what you need it to do, but they won't start fraying and having those loose fibers like that. So that's what I like to use these for. Then I'm gonna go back here and I'm gonna go, okay, now I'm gonna work on these little bit larger rivets, right? So I'm gonna go to, let's say this number 4 here that I've got numbered. And once again, get a little gold on here on the end, right? And then I'm just gonna dab, dab, go down here, dab, over here, dab. So now this first one here, when I did, it has a little bit too much paint on it. You can see it kind of standing up a little bit. So once again, area where I could come in here with this one is the 806, and just soak a little bit of that up, right? Same thing down here. Soak a little bit of that up, just so it's not balled up too much on there. But these ball stylus are a really easy way to just kind of get those really sharp circular rivets without having to, hit it with a paintbrush and try to be super careful. You can just be a little bit more, I guess, haphazard with it and still accomplish what you're trying to do. So I'm going to go back to this number 2. Actually, I'm going to do the number 3 and get these ones down here. So get some on there and dab, dab. Now this one's underneath of that, but I think I'm going to try to use the smaller one there. Let's use a 2. And I may have to end up touching this up with a brush anyways, just because it's so close, but Yeah, I think, let me get my magnifier and take a look. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. And if you have too small of a ball stylus on it, you can still do it on the bigger ones. You just have to kind of tap it a little bit more. So like with this one here, I noticed it's a little bit missing on the side here. So I'm just gonna kind of dab it a little bit. So there you go. Now, the other thing that you can do with this, you can actually do eyes with it. Now, I don't know that I would fully do an eye with it, but certain parts of the eye you could definitely do. So let me grab a sculpt real quick. This is a general head. This is from God's Fire series, available at Wolf King Customs. And I'd been working on this previously. I hadn't finished it, kind of working on the scarring and stuff. But for the point of what we're doing today, I'm just gonna focus on kind of working on this eye here real quick. So what I'm gonna do first, I've mixed up some white and gray and a little bit of purple to make what we're gonna call the whites of the eyes, which aren't exactly white. So that's why you don't really wanna use a pure white, because people's eyes aren't completely white. So I've mixed up this color, and I'm just gonna go in here real quick and do the inside of that. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm just working on what we're calling the whites of the eyes. And if that goes a little bit into the eyelid, that's not the end of the world, because we're gonna touch that up afterward anyhow. You wanna make sure, and I talk about this in my eye videos that I did, that are also available on this channel in the playlist. You wanna make sure that you're claiming all that space that you need for the whites, right? Because you can always tighten it up a bit by, going back in on the eyelids. But it's a little bit harder to kind of create more eye space afterwards. And you don't want to make your working canvas too small. That's my dog scratching himself. You done? All right. So like you see there, I just went up kind of into the upper eyelid. Now I'm going to touch that up anyway, but this is a good opportunity to show you, kind of like what I do with these Tamiya swabs. So I'll just get a little bit of water on there, and then I'll go into where that went into the upper eyelid and just kind of clean that up just a little bit, right? Especially if I've already got my skin tones to the point where I really like them. I don't want to go too far up there. I can tighten it up a bit, but I don't want it going way up top. Just kind of pull out this card that we used previously when we were looking at eyes. And what you can see on here is, we talked about this, you're going to do the whites of the eyes. Then you're going to make a black circle, right? And it doesn't have to be a complete circle, because part of it could be cut off by the eyelid, depending on the shape of the eye that you're working with. But should be circular on this side, circular on this side. And if there were no eyelid, it would be a complete circle. Okay, so you're gonna do a black circle, then you're gonna fill that in with a color. Doesn't matter, which color eyes you're doing. Typically, you're gonna make that color a little bit darker on the top, a little bit lighter on the bottom, where kind of light is hitting it more. And then you're gonna do a black circle in the middle, as well as a reflection point if you've got the space for it. So this is where these little styluses can come in handy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put that initial black circle, we're gonna do that with one of these styluses. And you just gotta make sure that you're finding the right one that you want. And I think it's probably gonna be this number 3 for me. But what I'm gonna do is just kind of, without any paint on it, I'm just gonna put it on there and see what that looks like. And I think that's about the right size for the initial black circle. So I'm gonna go ahead and get some black on there. And then, let's see where I can put the magnifier. We're just gonna go in here and kind of dab that right in the middle. Looks like you got a little bit too much paint on there, but here we go. Okay, so that was my initial attempt. You can see The black got a little bit down at the bottom. It's not quite where I would want it to be, but I can make it bigger. I kind of want to go bigger with this anyway. So with that, I'm just gonna dab a little bit more around it. I know I need to go up and I need to go more towards the nose. So I'm gonna dab upward and then towards the nose. Okay. Get a little bit more paint on there. Now I'm just making it more circular. So there you go. So now I've used that stylus to create the black on there. I'm gonna let this dry a little bit, and then I will go in to work on the rest of it, and then we'll actually tighten up around that eyelid just so you can kind of see what that'll look like once that's completed. So let me let this dry and we'll be right back. All right, so we're back. At this point, I'm going to go in and paint the green inside here. Now, with this, I'm trying to fill basically all of that with the exception of the outside. So this is a very kind of tight, thin line that we're trying to leave here. So that I'm not going to use with a stylus. That I'm actually going to use a brush for. And so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to use green. So I'm going to take a little bit of this black, move it over here, just kind of darken up some of this green. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, so that's going to be kind of my initial green that I'm going to use on there. So all I'm doing here is I'm just filling the inside of that area that I just did black. I'm filling that with the green and leaving a small, thin black line on the outside. So I'm doing this with a brush, and I'm just trying to leave a little bit of that black. Not a ton. Okay. So that's kind of what that looks like there. Hopefully you guys can see that. I'll try to shine a little bit more light on it. So that's that initial green. Now, like I said, down towards the bottom of it, I want it to be a little bit lighter green. So that's where I'm going to go in with this little bit lighter color while what I'm working on is still wet. And I'm just going to lighten up the bottom of this circle that we just did on the inside. Okay, so a little subtle change. You might not even be able to tell, but we've lightened up the bottom of that green. So it's a little bit lighter than what it is on the top. So then we're going to let this dry, so we're essentially at the point where we've done the whites, we've done the black circle, we've done the green. Now we need this black here and we need this white. So here we go. So we're using the number 2 here. Just getting some black on this. Let's see where I can get that. Okay, and I'm just gonna try to go in here and I'm trying to go dead in the center of this green. Okay, and that is pretty good. Looks like it went a little bit off to the right, but it's not too bad. So I'm just gonna tap it again, a little bit more left. There we go. So now that it's pretty dilated, but I think that works. What did we use? We used the number 2 here. you know, probably could have gone with number 1 and gone a little bit smaller on that black dot. But I think it's all right. And then we're going to try the 1. And we're going to go in, make sure I got this clean. We're going to go in and put that little reflection in there. So for this, we want to make sure we don't have too much paint on here. We just want a very little bit of paint. And we're just going to tap in like this top corner up here. Based on where we went with it, I think we're going to go on this side. And I think I'm going to do a little bit more. There we go. So that would be kind of the finished part of the eye. Then I would outline it, touch up the eyelids and stuff, and kind of go from there. So let me do that. That's not really part of this with the stylus. So let me do that real quick, and then I'll be back to show you what that looks like when it's finished. All right, I'm back. So I just decided to finish the whole head because I did the eye, and then I was like, well, I want to do the eyelids. And then I got done with the eyelids, and then I was like, well, I want to finish the skin tone around it. And then I was like, well, may as well just finish the whole head, which was not really the intention. But with these sculpting tools, you know, you do get, you can kind of make a fine point, and just to, you know, kind of finish up illustrating this, just take the back of this card. So here is the number 3. I'll just put a bit of black on here, and, you know, you can see just kind of a, you know, a dot, and you can make it smaller as you go, you know. So you can control it a little bit better than with a paintbrush for making kind of that, you know, like perfect circle. So these are really nice. And then for the Tamiya Swabs, once again, 87-105, 87-106. Both of these are very helpful. This one is better for kind of really tight spots. This one is a little bit more absorbent, so if you're trying to get a bigger area, this one works well. But both of these, I find a lot of value in these tools. Hopefully you do as well. I will put a link in the description of this. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them out there. If you have any you know, tips or other tools or tricks that you'd like me to try, feel free to throw those in the comments as well. And until next time, folks, keep creating.